Hi, students. Dr. Roz here with our Week 5 presentation. Just want to say a few things about proteins, and then we'll move into the assignment for this week. This is kind of a little bit slower of a week, so hopefully if you are missing some assignments, you can get those turned in as soon as possible. We've managed to get to week 5 with the vast majority of you turning everything in and doing really well. So hopefully with that, we'll just continue the remaining 5 weeks of this term, and that'll take us, to the end, and you'll get credit for this course. So that being said, let's look a little bit today at proteins. We know they're extremely important, right? You have to have them in your diet. For a while there were a lot of protein-free diets and things like that, and that's something. You don't ever want to eliminate something from your diet because they're in your diet for a reason. I mean, our bodies need a certain amount of proteins, even fats. Our body need a certain amount of fats for insulation and thermal necessities and energy and so on. So proteins really no different, right? We need to have them. Why do we need them? Well, a lot of the parts of our body are made up of proteins. Our hair and skin, for one, are protein based. There's protein in our blood, protein that power our muscles, protein in the enzymes, right, that we make. And we know that our DNA one of the things, we know DNA is genetic, right, information. But another thing that DNA does is serves as a template for RNA. And what RNA does is it makes amino acids. And when you string these long chains of amino acids together, that's what makes our protein. So they're extremely important pieces, right? So every day, right, we need a good supply of protein in our diet. I just talked a little bit about those amino acids, right? The amino acid is the building block of protein, right? It's the unit that RNA makes that codes for a specific amino acid. Now, there's 64 different combinations that we can have relative to amino acids, but in our diet, we have to have 20 what we call essential amino acids in our diet each day. Most of our food will contain the amino acid, and if they contain all 20 of the amino acids that we need, we call that a complete protein, right? Because it's got all of them in the one food source. Poultry, fish, soybeans, any legume really, milk are what we consider to be complete proteins. Now, there are some other things, some of our vegetable proteins that are what we consider to be incomplete proteins because they'll have some of those 20 amino acids, but not all 20 of the amino acids. So a nice mix to our diet, we should be able to get all 20 every day. Now, whenever we say protein, a lot of times people will think of meat, and meat is a good source of protein. However, right, you don't have to get your protein source from meat, right? Meat does have those essential amino acids inside of it, but because of the saturated fats that are in meat, we don't want to eat a lot of red meat there. So you can get your proteins from plant sources. I mentioned the legumes being really good. Brown rice, very good. Nuts, whole grains, all those things that are not only a protein source that have those amino acids in them, but they're also low in fat too. So, um, you know, make sure you're getting a hold of non-meat proteins too. We pay special attention here to nuts, right? Very good source of protein. They're actually, a good snack source. They're They contain unsaturated fat, which is, the good fat. And they also contain, a lot of them contain what's called omega-3s, which are very good to have in your diet. Soybeans, I mentioned, being a legume, excuse me, are very good for your diet, right? They're considered to be a complete source of protein. So we want to have them in our diet because there's not a lot of cholesterol, there's not a lot of saturated fat inside of them. However, we have to be really careful. Sometimes legumes and specifically soybean, there's lots of studies about them contributing, even though they're unsaturated fat, contributing to heart disease and certain types of cancer. So specifically breast cancer. So if you're a woman, you're probably not going to want to, have that be your sole source, right, of protein every day. Now, some cultures and societies will eat very little meat to begin with. Looking at Asian cultures, very much a rice-based diet, lots of vegetarians. African cultures, yams, peanuts, rice, things that grow underground, to stay out of the hot sun. And with the Asian cultures, the rice, because of the rice will grow, needs a lot of water. So you have monsoon seasons that provide that amount of water that would be necessary. But like anything, right, we have to look at some of the corresponding pieces of that. So when eaten and don't make any one thing, I guess is what I want to say, your sole source of protein in your diet, because a lot of these will contribute to heart disease, even though the fat is unsaturated, and they're high in calories and can contribute to diabetes. So you have to be careful with those things. And then, of course, there are other costs associated with eating meat and beef. There are feedlots where, cows or don't have access to, eating grains, which is what they like to eat. So they're eating corn usually out of troughs and not being able to move around a lot. They also contribute to the production of a lot of manure. So we have to, look at how cows are raised on a farm. Or can they graze? Can they eat grass and other grains? Or are they merely corn fed? So we have to look at that. The other piece, of course, they're fed antibiotics and growth hormones, right? So that the growth hormones, so they'll get bigger faster, so they can go to market faster. And the antibiotics, right, to keep them healthy because they're right on top of each other. We certainly, with COVID, have learned a lot about, right, how distancing is good. And I think, we've known that all along in these big feedlots where animals are kept in very close quarters. They tend to get sick at a much higher rate than other places. And then the other thing is with manure and substances that end up getting into our rivers, our streams, and wash into areas like the Gulf of Mexico, for example. I'll post this. It's a really good TED education talk on the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, where nutrients and substances, molecular substances, I guess, get washed, like phosphates and nitrates and stuff, get into the soil, and then they get into the waterways and get washed into where the Mississippi River, for example, empties into the Gulf of Mexico there, and it's killing off. That's where the dead zone comes in. It's killing off, in this area, shrimp, for example. Like very few shrimp that we eat today actually come from the Gulf of Mexico because it's a dead zone. So most of the shrimp that we eat are farm-raised shrimp. They're raised specifically for consumption by people. So when these nitrates and nitrites and pollutants and so on get into the waterways and cause this dead zone, one of the things that they create are what are called algal blooms, ALGAL, or the creation, right, of algae. So, if you've ever seen a stream that is green, that nothing else can grow there because the algae is consuming all of the oxygen that's in that water. And a healthy stream should have a certain percentage of dissolved oxygen inside of it. So that's our. Make sure you can see that. But again, I'll post this this video. It's very good about the dead zone. Again, keep doing what you're doing. If you need me at any for any reason, please drop me an email, and I'll get right back to you. So we're halfway through. Let's keep at it. It's been a pleasure. Let me know if I can help you in any way. That's it for today. Thanks.